Hey everybody, welcome back. What we're going to be going over now is a little demo linking up two technologies that we've been talking about. Now, I've kind of mentioned that React is a front-end environment, and we can use it to interact with lots of nice back-end style things, so that's what we're going to do today. And rather than do it for Rails or PHP, let's try it for Flask just for the fun of it. Um, you can do very similar things with pretty much any backend technology. All you really need to do is figure out how to transmit data from that backend to React. And more than likely, it's going to involve using the Axios module. So that's what we're going to be doing here. I've got this link up, and I'll put this in the description as well. Basically, this is one that I came across where everything is kind of nicely encapsulated in one blog post where A, it's up to date, B, it works, and C, it's not a weird screen grab off of Pinterest, which I started noticing too. Um, but yeah, basically, this is one thing that we can do, and we get a few nice little things about that as well. So I'm going to move this off screen so that I can follow along, and I will walk you through it as we go. But we're going to start with a brand new, fresh environment. And I'm going to pull this over here. Um, Actually, I'm going to not pull this over here. This is going to be the end goal. Ignore the testing text. I've been kind of having a little bit of a, not a mental breakdown today, but things have not been working well with my computer, and it's been a good computer fixing day, I guess. So we're going to start off, as always, by creating a new React app. I'm going to call this Flask React Demo. So working one here, prove that this thing actually works if I need to. And it's going to spin up a brand new React application just like before. We're using npx. Everything should hopefully make sense. I will be back in 1 minute after this finishes the basic installation process. Okay, and we are back. That took longer than normal, and I am not super stoked about it. So I have now my Flask React demo folder, so let's go ahead and add it to VS Code. Really big just went by. I'm at the school, so surprised to hear something big go by. All right, so I think I explained this before in another video. If I didn't, I apologize, because some demos I tried and just tossed them away. I'm using VS Code now because it works a lot nicer with pretty code formatting, with um, auto updating, live reloading, that kind of stuff. I like it a lot better than the terminal, and yeah, that's why we're in VS Code now. Ubuntu 20 down here still for me. This is just my terminal, and I've got now my pages here. So I have my basic React application up and running. Nothing new here. If I were to run npm start, you would still see the usual spinning atomic logo type of thing. But what we're going to do now is create our Flask server. So we're going to call this backend just to follow along with the guide here. And I'm going to skip the virtual environment a bit because I already have Flask, I already have python.env installed. It's good practice to use virtual environments to kind of separate out your modules, but I don't need to do that myself. So I'm going to, well, let's use VS Code. I was going to use the terminal, but we want a .env file. So let's create a file. So .flask env. And then we also want, what do we call it? Base.py. So base.py. So we've got two files here. Flask env, this is a different way to configure Flask. Like we just ran the Python script before. And here we're going to basically say Flask run. So we could say Flask app equals base.py, Flask env equals development. Change that to production when you're ready. But just a couple of environment variables for Flask to consume. All done with that one. Now our base.py is going to run our basic Flask application, and it's going to look a touch different from our usual one because we're not doing like the main, like if name equals main thing. We're just going to do a quickie here. So from Flask, import Flask. We're going to skip templating. Feel free to do that if you would like. API equals Flask name. So instead of what do we call it, app before, we're going to call this one API. Why are we calling it API? Well, it's an API that we're interacting with in React, so technically it's a good name here. And at api.route, and we're going to follow the guide here. We're pulling up a profile. And the intention would be that we are, maybe hooking this up to a database or something, pulling information, but we're just faking it here. So def profile, just prof, okay, function, and define a response body equals, and name, Eric, I forgot to quote this, and about professoring the days away. And then we'll return our response body. And we're not going to have an index page. Sorry about that. So I just did something weird where I put my hand in my pocket. It got a key went under my fingernail, and that hurt quite a bit. I have no idea how that happened, but it hurts. Anyway, no home, because this is literally just an API that we are going to query from React. Again, replace this with anything backend that you would do with a server. PHP, you're getting database information, Flask, you're serving up different templates, stuff like that. We are also just returning a JSON object as well. So let's go ahead and now run this thing. So let's go into Flask React demo, and we're going to go into backend. And in here, there's our Python script. We don't see our .env because it's hidden by default because it starts with a period. You do ls-a, you see it there. But I'm going to do Flask run. And this is going to pop open a Flask server running on port 5000. Again, just the defaults, tweak it for 0.0.0.0 and whatever port you have open if you want to put this on a production server. But now I can bring over a window here, localhost 5000, and here is my JSON profile that I'm returning. Again, this is how it is accessed. There is no default route, so you get a not found error. That is exactly what we were expecting to see, so let's go ahead and cancel off our Flask server. It's just working just fine, or just working just fine. Weird way to say that. Yeah, so our Python, hopefully we're back. Sorry, some of that's going to be cut up. My screen just started flickering with my streaming software in my my notes up here. Anyway, so we have our JSON object. Life is good there. Now let's go ahead and get our React application up and running and ready to talk to Flask. So first and foremost, we have our Flask app, and I'm just going to ask you to trust me that it works because, again, it's literally your default. We want to install a new package. So we want npm install Axios. Why are you flickering? Sorry, 1 second here. So just for your own personal benefits, I've got probably a 10-year-old monitor. It's like a little square guy, and yeah, it's not happy with me right now. Anyway, we are installing Axios. Okay, and you can all see this just fine. That's great. And we're going to get that installed to our node modules, and then we're going to update our package.json while that is, it's already done, even better. Okay, so package.json, again, this is where all of our dependencies, our modules, our configurable parameters are. In package.json, after I did that npm install, you now see Axios in there, so it automatically got populated, which is good. Again, that's how we're going to talk to Flask. We also need to add in a proxy for our Flask server. Now, you don't have to do this. We could use like exact path or absolute paths instead of relative paths, but this is going to make our life easier. Basically, we want to proxy our server, and you would replace localhost with wherever your Flask server is actually running from and whatever port it's running from. And we're basically going to be able to simply access this via profile or whatever /route you have set up. All right. Again, not strictly necessary, but it's a nice little nice to have type of thing. While we are in here, this is the other thing I really like about this tutorial is they bring up something I haven't talked about yet, which is tweaking our build scripts. And I mentioned that you could change npm start, npm run build, add in whatever you want, right? Well, we're going to do that here, and we're going to make it run our Flask server. And you could probably even condense this down into a single line as well. I'm going to do two separate ones just to show you. So we have our scripts here. So here's your npm start. It's actually react scripts dash or start, npm run build, react scripts build. We're going to add in, make sure we add the comma there, start dash backend, just follow their nomenclature, cd backend, ampersand, ampersand. I don't have a virtual host, so I don't have a env/bin/flask. What I'm talking about is, oops, right here. So we're adding in this backend. I don't have an env bin because I didn't create a virtual environment. If you did, you will have that. I'm just going to use my default Flask. And Flask, where'd it go? Run no debugger. Okay. So what this is doing is when we call npm run start dash backend, it's going to change the directory into our backend directory here and do Flask run no debugger, which gives us that live reload capability in Flask as well. We've done that before with Flask, especially if you went down the Flask route, but if you didn't, that's what we're doing there. Okay, Flask is all set. And you know what? While I am in here and talking about this, let's split our terminal. And I am going to show npm run start dash backend. So we're going to pop off our Flask backend. So that's up and running. We swing this over here, localhost 5000, not found, profile, it works. Okay, that's good. Now, the last bit, we are pretty much there. We need to update our application, we need to update our React application. So here is our React app, and let's go ahead and get that server running. And React will start up. We first are going to add in our new imports. So import, we actually want the use state as well, because we're going to keep track of state. We want Axios, so let's import Axios from Axios. Okay. And this is still spinning up, so something happened off screen for me. These other things are just fine. And what we're going to do now is delete everything out of app. Well, let's wait until, I guess, the dev server spins up, and then we'll get everything out of app. Because there it is. It's delightful. And I just realized something. Every time my phone buzzed, my monitor went off. And now that I moved it to my pocket, my monitor stopped flickering. That's very bizarre. Okay, so React app works. Told you it worked. Let's get rid of everything inside of here. Let's just return a div so that we have something here. All right, and now what I'm going to do is just copy and paste everything in here to save all the typing, and I'll talk through what's going on inside of there. So inside of app, we have some extra bits that we haven't really seen before, which is kind of par for the course for this class, right? So auto formats, it's recompiling. Let's hide our terminal because we don't need anymore. Hide that because we don't need anymore. Zoom in a touch, just a touch. All right, so we have, still recording, still not blocking anything. Okay, good. The talking to myself is just, you know, the aging process setting in. Anyway, so we are defining a const for our profile data, and this is going to be what we track from Flask. We're going to set it up to use state. So basically this line is giving us a nice, easily accessible state variable. All right, we're going to have a function for getting our data from our Flask server. Now this is a function that's going to be called, and it's going to run the Axios module, which is going to be our HTTP request method. And there's other ways to do this too. You don't need Axios. It's just one of the more common ones out there. I think in the tutorial they actually also mention Axios. Nope. There's another one they mentioned in here too. It might have been like fetch or, yeah, fetch is another one. But what we've got going on here is let's get this information. So we're going to do a get call. We're going to look at /profile. And again, if you didn't have that proxying happening in our package.json file, you'd have to put the exact path here. Once this happens, we then have this little asynchronous type of thing going on. We didn't really talk about this. Once this loads, then do this. So basically wait for a response. This is kind of akin to a async or a promise, if you're aware of those terminologies. Basically wait for things to happen and then do it. Once our response is in, we're going to get our data. So this is going to be that JSON object from Flask. We're going to set our profile data, which is our function there for setting things. And then we're going to populate that object with the incoming data from the Flask server. So basically set our state, call it profile data. Profile has a name, profile has an about. If you start adding in extra fields, you'd have to update that here, and you'd have to update it in your JSON object. If something went wrong, we're going to catch it, and we're going to log it to our console, our JavaScript console. So you'd see this in the dev tools. All right, so that's all we need to do to get the data there. Then we have our form. So basically, here's our app div, and then we have our basic Learn React header, so that full screen thing that you've come to know and love. And then we are going to add on a button to get profile details. So to get your profile details, click this button. Okay, and then we are going to add in some extra information for injecting that data. So click me calls get data. Get data is right here. That's how it links up. We don't need to update index. We don't need to do anything else at this point. So auto refreshed, which is nice. To get your profile details, click me. So while we're in here, let's look at the network tab just for fun. So I'm going to refresh. Here's all of our data. I'm going to click Eric, Professor. Doesn't sound right. It's cached. Sorry, let's hard refresh. Let's try this in Firefox. This is bizarre. Localhost /3000. Okay. What is going on here? Am I in the right directory? I'm not in the right directory. Oh my gosh. Flask. Okay. This is worth talking about. I was trying to figure out why I'm getting old data. This doesn't make any sense. Oh my goodness. Well, this is what happens when you decide, hey, I'm going to do the demo before you record to make sure it works. And then you're in the wrong directory. So am I even in the right directory here? Here I am. Okay. So let's refresh again. There we go. All right, and you even see the call to /profile here, which, hey, look at that. We can even inspect the headers. How fun. Here's the response. Hey, there's our little JS object. Okay, so what did we do here? We have Flask running in the backend. Again, replace that with any backend server technology you want. As long as you are providing a JSON object in this format, Flask isn't important here. I could just as easily serve a PHP page. I could serve a cloud endpoint from Google Cloud. I could do anything as long as this object is coming in to a format that our front end can understand. We can just pull that in easily enough. Anyway, this video is now sitting at 35, 40 minutes-ish before I cut it down, probably. So hope you all have a wonderful day. And I definitely give this one a shot. It's a nice little self-contained one. And I will see you next time. Bye, everybody.